This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the place where we take the most fascinating intellectual puzzles you send us and really just pull them apart. We want to understand the idea, sure, but also what it tells us about being human.
And today, we are jumping into a deep dive that's built on a hypothetical that is maybe the most profound constraint you could ever imagine. It's a thought experiment a listener sent in, and it's like a laser, it just burns away all the noise of modern life.
Okay, let's unpack this one. The premise is, it's stark, it's absolute. You imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, and, with just total 100% certainty, the exact day you're going to die.
Right. Not a guess, not a doctor's estimate.
No, not a range. It's a specific date circled on a calendar somewhere. It's a fact.
And that concept, which we're calling the certainty paradox, is our deep dive. Our mission here is to look at the source material, the philosophy, the psychology that explores what happens to people under that kind of certainty. What happens when the biggest variable in life is suddenly fixed?
What falls away?
Exactly. What priorities just melt away and what values suddenly become solid as a rock. And maybe the biggest question is, what does this whole terrifying idea reveal about how we're living right now in our world full of uncertainty?
Yeah, it's the key, isn't it? The mirror effect. We're not just telling a story. We're using this imaginary constraint to hold a mirror up to our own choices. How we use our time, our money, our emotional energy, all seen through this lens where the future isn't a mystery anymore.
Precisely. The moment the future goes from being indefinite to a fixed quantity, everything changes.
Yeah.
The value, everything from what you eat for lunch to your retirement plan is instantly repriced.
So here's how we're going to structure this deep dive. First, we'll get into that immediate psychological shockwave, that strange split between panic and relief.
Right.
Then we'll move into the huge changes in behavior and priorities, and especially how society and finance might just collapse.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll hit the ultimate paradox this whole thing is built on. The cruel twist about time, uncertainty, and why we even have ambition in the first place.
Let's do it. Let's start with that moment of realization. The knowledge just hit you. What happens next?
So, you know the date. It's a fact in your mind. The sources say the first thing that happens inside your head isn't just one simple emotion. It's a dichotomy.
It's a conflict.
Yes, a violent internal conflict, really.
Yeah.
You get hit with this overwhelming fear, but at the exact same time, this really unexpected deep sense of relief.
Which is so strange, isn't it? Certainty is something we usually think of as comforting, something that gives us control. But here it creates these two completely opposite feelings.
So let's talk about the fear first. That one seems obvious.
It is. For most people, the second they truly internalize that date, their relationship with time changes. It stops being an abstract idea, I'll die someday.
Right.
And it becomes this physical countdown, a visceral feeling.
It takes mortality out of the philosophy books and puts it on your kitchen calendar. It's not a concept anymore, it's just math. It dictates every single second you have left.
And that's when every clock starts ticking louder. Every normal, boring day suddenly feels so incredibly fragile.
The sources call this a shift from just intellectual awareness to somatic anxiety. It's in your body now.
Yes. Your body and mind aren't just dealing with a potential risk anymore. It's a guaranteed expiration date. And the panic isn't just about the final day itself. It's about the sudden, crushing fragility of all the days leading up to it.
I can see that. It's the fear of wasting even 5 minutes because you got a flat tire. When you know those 5 minutes are part of the most valuable, most finite resource you'll ever have.
Exactly. You get this overwhelming urge to preserve every moment, to protect your body, to just cling to the time you have left. It's a kind of hyper-awareness that could almost feel like a curse. You're forced to optimize every single second because you know exactly how many you have in total.
Okay, so that's the fear side. That makes perfect sense. But let's get into the relief. That's the part that I think is really counterintuitive. Why on earth would anyone feel relief?
It's the most fascinating part of the initial reaction, I think. The relief comes from one single thing: the complete and total disappearance of not knowing.
Wow.
Our brains often have a much harder time with vague, undefined threats than they do with absolute defined ones. We spend so much mental energy on worrying about worrying.
Right. Am I worrying enough about this? Should I be saving more? Am I hedging my bets correctly for the future? It's this endless, foggy dread.
It's exhausting. It's the anxiety of infinite possible failures. Am I saving enough for retirement? Am I exercising enough to prevent a heart attack? Am I calling my parents enough? Because I don't know the deadline, I can never be sure of what I'm doing is enough.
But when that certainty arrives,
All of that ambiguity just evaporates. The fear of the unknown is gone, and it's replaced by the fear of the known. And for some people, psychologically, that clarity, that end to the endless guesswork, it feels like a profound relief, even if it's a terrifying one.
so you're trading this kind of sprawling, low-grade fog of infinite anxiety for a sharply defined but finite dread.
You've nailed it. It's a cognitive simplification. You're trading one kind of suffering for another, and that immediately pushes you into a huge behavioral split. You have to make an extreme decision about how you're going to live.
Okay, let's break down that split. It seems like you're forced into one of two camps. Option A, you become hyper-cautious. Or option B, you become, well, reckless.
And the people who go for option A, the caution and preservation path, they're the ones responding to the fear part of the paradox.
They know exactly how much time is in the bank, so their whole life becomes about maximizing every last second of it.
They become radically risk-averse. I mean, why would you risk a preventable injury that could cost you 3 months of your remaining time? Or waste 2 weeks in jail? Or even a single day being hung over?
Every action is measured against that final date. They want to arrive at that day in the best possible shape, physically and mentally, to squeeze every last drop of quality out of the time they're guaranteed.
You'd see this radical obsession with safety, with nutrition, no motorcycles, no risky travel, no speculative investments. Every day is a precious thing that has to be protected like a piece in a museum.
Okay, but then there's option B, recklessness and release. This group seems to be driven by the relief side of it all.
Exactly. This person looks at that fixed date and sees liberation. They realize that all the long-term consequences that society uses to keep us in line,
Like financial ruin or your professional reputation.
all of it becomes completely irrelevant after that date. It has no meaning.
And that's where everything just breaks down. Why would you stay in a job you hate if you don't have to worry about finding a new one in 5 years?
Why would you hold on to savings for a retirement that you now know for a fact is never going to happen? These are the people who would quit their jobs on the spot, spend every penny on immediate experiences.
And maybe most importantly, they'd finally say the things they've always held back.
Yes, it's a radical reprioritization. It's all about immediate, authentic action instead of long-term prudence. This person is basically saying, the system I lived in was built on a lie, the lie of indefinite time. Now that I know the truth, I'm tearing that system down.
So the recklessness comes from being freed from that long-term fear. The fear of failure, the fear of being poor when you're old.
Yeah.
It's just neutralized.
It is, but I think it's more complex than just a simple binary choice, you know. The source material suggests you could actually be both cautious and reckless at the same time.
How does that work?
Well, imagine a really ambitious person who finds out they have exactly 4 years left. They might become totally reckless with their money, right?
Sure, draining their savings for travel, for pure fun.
But at the same time, they could become hyper-cautious about their health, meticulously tracking their diet, their exercise. Not to live longer than the date, but to make sure they have the maximum physical ability to enjoy those 4 years.
I see. So the recklessness is only aimed at the systems that go past their end date, like finances. But the caution is applied to the one thing they still control within that window, their own body.
It's targeted optimization. The ultimate goal is just maximizing the value of the time that's left. And for one person, that means protecting the hours. For another, it means destroying the things that waste those hours.
That distinction really brings us to the core philosophical question that this whole thing raises.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, do we live better when we believe time is basically unlimited, or when we know for a fact that it's not?
And that is the absolute crux of it. Most of us right now, we operate under this unspoken assumption of indefinite time. We're built for the long haul.
And that assumption, as comfortable as it is what fuels so much procrastination. We put things off because we think, oh, there's always tomorrow.
We put off the apology, we defer the difficult conversation. We say, we'll take that big trip someday, you know, when the kids are older, when we have more money. That endless horizon makes it possible to put things off forever. Uncertainty is the engine of postponement.
But certainty, knowing time is finite, that forces clarity. It just snaps your priorities into focus, whether you like it or not.
It does. But there's a cost. and we have to acknowledge it. You lose that sense of infinite possibility. If you know you only have 7 years left, you're not going to start that huge project that needs 10 years to even get off the ground.
Right.
You trade a grand, sprawling vision for a smally but guaranteed accomplishment.
So the uncertainty of our normal lives, which leads to all this procrastination, is also what fuels our biggest, most ambitious dreams. The hope that we might live long enough to finish the cathedral or see the generational shift.
Uncertainty creates the space for hope. Certainty creates the pressure for clarity. It's a massive trade-off. And how you resolve that trade-off inside yourself is what determines whether you lean towards preservation or reckless liberation.
And the second you make that internal choice, everything on the outside has to change too, especially your relationships.
Oh, absolutely. The entire architecture of your social and financial life has to be rebuilt from the ground up.
Let's talk about relationships first. It seems like the certainty just removes all the buffer time. Every single interaction is suddenly seen through this cold, hard lens of a fixed deadline. The emotional stakes just go through the roof.
It's a profound transformation. Everything moves toward what you might call immediate emotional settlement. Think about, small daily fights or those long-standing family grudges.
Feel completely pointless.
Utterly pointless. If you know you have 3 years left, is it really worth spending that time being angry at your brother? Is that resentment worth sacrificing 3 years of a finite shared connection?
No way. The emotional math just changes instantly. Holding a grudge is an investment, right? It takes time and energy to maintain it. But with a fixed deadline, the return on that investment drops to zero. All that energy gets reallocated to either connection or closure. It's the ultimate not worth it filter on everything.
And that clarity, of course, it also applies to the good stuff. The expressions of love, of regret. You'd feel this powerful compulsion to just clear the emotional ledger.
All those times you put off telling someone you love them because you're waiting for the perfect moment.
That's gone. The fear of social awkwardness just vanishes because the need for authenticity is suddenly the only thing that matters. It's not about the perfection of the moment anymore. It's about the urgency of the moment.
You're talking about people flying across the country to make an apology or finally saying what they've felt for years. There's just no more time for polite social games.
And that intensity can be an incredibly beautiful thing for everyone involved. But we have to look at the darker side the sources point to, the tragic possibility of pulling away, withdrawing from the people you love.
That's the one that I find just heartbreaking. Why would anyone choose to isolate themselves instead of maximizing that shared time? I don't get the logic there.
It's driven by a deep, but maybe misguided sense of compassion. If you know the exact moment you're going to leave someone, your instinct might be to try and lessen their future pain.
By hurting them now.
By creating distance now. The thinking might be, if I gradually pull away, it will be less of a shock for them when the day comes. It'll be less painful than a super intense connection that just stops.
That's a terrible irony.
Yeah.
Trying to protect someone by denying them the very thing they need most in the time that's left.
It is. The certainty just amplifies both the light and the dark of human connection, the incredible meaning of a shared moment, but also the crushing weight of knowing when it will end. Every single goodbye becomes heavier.
And that profound shift in emotional value is immediately reflected in the total collapse of long-term planning, especially financial planning.
The entire scaffolding of modern society, of achievement, is built on the assumption that we have a long, indefinite timeline. The moment you fix that timeline, the whole thing starts to crumble.
We're moving from just personal consequences to a full-blown macroeconomic shift.
Absolutely. The most obvious example is retirement savings. Why would anyone keep putting money in a 401k if they know for a fact they won't live past 52? That entire concept of future financial security becomes instantly irrelevant.
So all that saved up capital gets reclassified. It goes from being future wealth to immediate spending money.
The savings rate for those people would drop to zero overnight, and spending on experiences would just skyrocket. This would completely reshape economies around the world. Industries based on long-term financial products would crater, while travel and entertainment would boom.
And what about the ripple effects? What happens to, say, the insurance industry?
Life insurance is obsolete for anyone who knows the date. Health insurance. Well, that still matters for immediate care, but long-term care policies, they're gone. And think about things like the mortgage market.
Who's going to give a 30-year mortgage to someone who only has 10 years left?
Exactly. Or what about government bonds? The whole system is based on trust in a long-term future. It completely disrupts the idea of generational wealth, too. If you know your end date, the incentive is to liquidate everything and turn it into experiences for yourself right now. Why save for your kid's future when you can maximize your own present?
This also forces huge changes professionally. The lawyer who's grinding away for 10 years to make partner, if their date is in 5 years, that goal is just gone.
They'd quit, they'd abandon the high-stress, high-reward path, and maybe switch to doing something more meaningful, more immediate, maybe pro bono work that aligns with their actual values, not just their ambition.
Or the farmer who buys a huge, expensive tractor that's meant to last for 30 years.
If he only has 3 harvests left, he's not making that investment. He's focused only on the now. The priority shifts completely to the present. It's experiences over achievements, lasting memories over distant milestones.
And that's the link, isn't it? The relationship shift and the planning shift are the same thing. In relationships, you want meaningful connection now. In planning, you want maximum experience now.
It strips away all the deferred gratification that our society is built on. We're taught to work hard and sacrifice now for a reward later. Certainty just flips that completely on its head. The reward has to be immediate because later is a known finite quantity. It's the ultimate enforcement of living in the moment.
And that enforcement,
Right.
that pressure,
Yeah.
it leads us right into this crisis of purpose. This is where you have to figure out what you really want versus what you were just doing out of habit.
We've seen this dramatic shift in priorities, but the source material is very specific about how that happens. It forces you to ask yourself this really hard question: which of my goals actually matter to me and which ones were just habits?
That distinction between a real desire and just a routine is huge.
It's central to everything. We all collect these habits, these routines we do for comfort, or because society expects us to, or to manage our fear of the future. And we often mistake those habits for actual goals.
Okay, give me some examples. What's something we think is a goal but is really just a habit?
The classic one is climbing the corporate ladder. Going to those networking events every week, even if you hate them, that's a habit. It's driven by the societal expectation that this is what you do to get ahead.
But if you know you only have 3 years left,
You drop it instantly. It was never an authentic desire. It was just a tool for long-term protection. Now that long-term is gone, the tool is useless.
so saving for retirement is a habit built on fear. What about more personal things, like constantly checking your email or always needing the house to be perfectly clean?
Those are often habits of control and avoidance. Constantly checking your email gives you this false feeling of being productive, and it lets you avoid the harder, deeper work you should be doing.
But with a fixed timeline, you don't have time for fake productivity.
Not at all. Your energy is a finite resource, and it's reserved only for the authentic goals, the difficult conversations, the creative project, the essential experiences. The certainty acts like a filter, ensuring you only spend energy on the things that have real impact.
So the goals that disappear are the ones based on fear,
Right.
on what other people think, or the ones that just need forever to come true.
Precisely. But an authentic goal, like learning a language or writing that book you've always talked about, or really connecting with your partner, or traveling somewhere that means something deep to you.
Those don't disappear.
They get supercharged. Certainty doesn't kill those goals. It gives them immediate, total authority over your life. It accelerates them.
And there must be a huge sense of liberation in that. Just imagine all the mental energy you'd free up if you no longer had to worry about keeping up appearances or going to things you don't want to go to.
That's the core freedom the sources talk about. The ability to redirect all of that energy toward the few things that are actually authentically you. It's the ultimate lesson in minimalist ambition.
This whole journey has been about finding clarity. But the source material saves its biggest, most important insight for last. The paradox we started with, it calls it the cruel twist.
And that's the philosophical hinge for the entire thought experiment. The cruel twist is this. All the clarity, all the urgency, all the authenticity that you would hypothetically get from knowing the date,
Yeah.
it's all stuff you could have right now. Because we already are dying, we just don't know when.
It's the ultimate memento mori, remember you must die. The whole exercise is about gaining this secret knowledge, only to be reminded that the fundamental truth was there all along. We were just choosing to ignore it.
And that forces us to look back at uncertainty itself. Why is it so important for us? The sources argue that uncertainty is the fuel. It's what gives life its beauty, its hope, its surprises, its sense of possibility.
Let's break that down. The connection between uncertainty and hope. Hope can only exist if the future is unknown, right?
Right. If you don't know what's coming, there's always the chance for things to get better, for redemption, for a breakthrough you didn't see coming. No matter how bad things are now, an uncertain future holds possibility.
And possibility is the key word. An unknown timeline means the space of what's possible is basically infinite.
Which is why we, as a species, try to cure cancer or build structures that are meant to last for 1,000 years. We start these massive multi-generational projects because we collectively operate on this assumption of an indefinite future.
So what happens to that infinite space of possibility when an individual finds out their date?
It shrinks. Life becomes clearer, your priorities are certain, yes, but it also becomes smaller. You're no longer going to invest your energy in any possibility that extends beyond that date. Your hope is limited, your scope of action is finite. You might live more intensely, sure, but within a much, much smaller playground.
So we're trading the sprawling, messy chaos of infinite possibility, which allows for big dreams but also big procrastination, for the focused but constrained clarity of certainty.
That's the trade-off right there. Certainty gives you clarity and frees you from the dread of the unknown, but it kills hope and surprise and the potential for a future you can't even imagine yet. The fiction that we have forever, it's a necessary fiction. It's what allows civilization to function.
And it makes you realize that the way we live, our entire system of saving and planning and deferring gratification, it all depends on us not knowing. If we all knew the date, we wouldn't be the same species. We wouldn't be capable of the kind of long-term thinking that builds societies.
The individual's whole relationship with time, with society, with themselves, it shatters and reforms around this much smaller, more immediate, authentic core. The paradox is that the clarity certainty gives you is, in the end, a cage. And the uncertainty we live with every day, as scary as it is the source of our greatest freedom.
So this deep dive into the certainty paradox it's really revealed some profound things. Let's summarize the key findings. The knowledge of your death date creates this immediate split between panic and relief.
It forces you into this choice between extreme caution and total recklessness, but often it's a mix of both a targeted optimization of the time you have left.
And most importantly, it completely reorganizes your priorities. You move away from those long-term, socially proved habits and toward immediate, meaningful experiences. And in the process, whole financial and emotional systems just collapse.
And as we wrap up, we have to come back to that final philosophical turn. The knowledge we think we want, the date, is actually less important than using the knowledge we already have, which is just that our time is limited.
So all the urgency and clarity we'd get from knowing the date?
Yeah.
It's achievable now, in theory. It's just a matter of choice.
This whole thought experiment is really a tool. It's a cognitive intervention. It asks you to think about the immediate, authentic changes that certainty would force on you, and then challenges you to make those changes right now while your timeline is still open and full of possibility.
Because the clock is ticking. For all of us. Whether we can see it or not. The real power here isn't in thinking about a hypothetical world, but in realizing we can bring that urgency and focus into our real lives without losing the hope that uncertainty gives us.
Right.
So we'll end by posing that ultimate question from the source material directly to you, the listener. This is the core of the whole idea. What would you change today if you acted like your time was limited, even without knowing the date?
What habit would you just drop right now? And what real connection would you immediately prioritize? The key is choosing to live with the clarity that certainty would give you without needing to see the numbers.
A huge thank you to the listener who shared the fascinating source material for this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning what you know and keep looking for that authentic core.